Radio in motion. Program loading in 3, 2, 1. Program activated.
Attention everyone, the unpleasant noise you are about to hear coming from your radio is not a mistake.
Okay, first things first, what is your name?
This is Big Sonny playing the best of the 90s and beyond.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah. Radio in motion.
Please do not turn off your radio, but turn up the volume on your receiver as high as it can go.
All right, here we go.
Radio in motion.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. All right, we got another segment right now of The Ugly Truth. And the ugly truth is modern television really sucks. A lot of it is just horrible, rewashed, rewritten, same old stuff. And, it's refreshing when you find a show that actually lets you escape a lot of the modern problems. That's another thing, a lot of shows, they just deal with so much heavy political discourse, and if you're in the mood for that, that's great. But sometimes you're not in the mood to be preached at. And tonight I'm going to talk about a show that is really quite refreshing. And I'm a huge sci-fi nerd and a huge Star Trek nerd. And no, for anyone who's not well versed on that, Star Trek is not Star Wars. Those universes are different, and any Star Trek or Star Wars fan will fight you to the last. Yes, we're nerds. But frankly, this show that I'm going to talk about, the Orville, is something that anyone who just wants to watch a good TV show and be entertained with good characters can watch too. But first, I did want to mention, sadly, obviously, I'm sure you've all heard by now, James Earl Jones has died at the age of 93. It's so sad. He's one of those that should have been on my sort of a watch list. I've got a bit of a watch list going on with actors and like Clint Eastwood. I'm keeping an eye on Clint Eastwood. I'm just saying he's getting up there. And I wish all the best health, obviously, to all of that generation. But they are getting older, folks. It's sad when you get to the point in life when life starts taking things away and not giving them back. Another one I'm keeping an eye on is William Shatner, obviously the Star Trek connection. He is, by the way, also in his early 90s, which, again, if you were to look at him, and I didn't tell you that, you would have not believed that. The man has good genetics. But yeah, James Earl Jones. Everyone's just doing the obvious, voice of Darth Vader. That's too on the nose. I mean, he is really, of course, that is one of the most iconic things. His voice, absolutely iconic. The voice of CNN long ago. This is CNN. But beyond that, yeah, he's been so influential in so many other roles, and I think as well as Mufasa from The Lion King. For me, I remember him from Conan. If anyone remembers, he was Tulsa Doom in that. He was the villain. He was frightening. Again, he's got that foreboding, deep, commanding voice, and in a role like that, when he plays the villain, it's funny though. In that role, he actually had some great monologues, some great lines, and you almost sort of were being disarmed by him. Like, oh, this is a nice guy. He wasn't a nice guy. And of course, I was thinking, Coming to America, King Jafar. That is one of the best. One of my favorite lines from that movie is at the start. With Eddie Murphy at the wedding. He stops the wedding because Eddie Murphy's having concerns about his bride, which is how he ends up in New York. And James Earl Jones, as his dad, someone knocks on the door and says, all the wedding guests are waiting. And this shows you the how his voice can be commanding and soft. In a huge booming voice, he goes, let them wait. I'm speaking with my son in such a gentle way. So that's, again, it's when it's an actor like that, you certainly do have the films to go back and at least you can reminisce through a lot of their roles like that. But yeah, I think Vader, of course, the iconic voice of Darth Vader in Star Wars. But I think when he's playing, when we get to see him, something like Coming to America, I'll always remember that. So on to what I wanted to talk about tonight, a great show called The Orville, which is really sort of a love letter to Star Trek. We'll get into that in a second. I did want to talk about what I meant by TV just seems so lifeless these days, and just redone and rebooted and reimagined the same old stuff. And I feel like, when the message starts to pop in, and that's anytime they are trying to preach to you, or someone in the audience they've chosen as the target, and you're being talked to as you're the problem and you're bad. And frankly, folks, if you're not noticing that in a lot of shows, then I think you're not very awake. But a lot of shows are like that, and they focus on superficial things. They will focus on race, gender, and sexuality, which are, of course, important parts and make up all humans and an important part of our lives, but that's not all we are. It's so superficial that those are the only subjects they can talk about. If the entirety of your identity is race, gender, and sexuality, and there's nothing beyond that, your mind, your soul, your artistic nature, your creativity, the things you can do, the amazing things that humans are, I'm just saying that gets really boring. And a lot of them just talk about politics and ideologies, and that's the trio. That's the message. And I'm sure you've heard that phrase before. And frankly, that gets old. Yes, you can put those messages in movies and TV. It's not the first time. It's been there for a century, and that's fine. That's what they're for. Of course, a movie has a message or a moral message, but the whole movie can't, or TV show, or in general, can't revolve around those main subjects as the core of it and obsess over them. So, frankly, that's what's starting to really get a bit old and just wash over all of television, and it's wearing a bit thin. So, it's great to see something refreshing like this. So this is Seth McFarland, and again, if I'm preaching to people who've already seen it, then good. I'm sort of trying to talk to the people who are sci-fi or Star Trek fans, or just want a good show in general and enjoy the characters and go on that ride. This is the show for you, but especially Star Trek fans. Seth MacFarlane, okay, so he's the brains behind Family Guy, Ted, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, so is it going to be Family Guy in space? Yes, it's a comedy, but having said that, and I'll take you on the journey of what it is. It has comedy in it. It's lighthearted, but the drama, the story writing, the effects, and the characters and the development, top notch. The comedy is there because, again, it's like an homage to Star Trek. Not so much a parody. It's not making fun of it. It's absolutely always paying respect. But like I say, when I first heard, it's Seth MacFarlane, he's a bit give and take. Sometimes I'm not in the mood for that. But you know what? He's done all right with this. He's really paid respect to the show. And again, so why am I so anti-modern Star Trek? Because it's not like I'm some sort of purist, like, oh no, it has to be this timeline, and of course, Picard did this, and Kirk did this, and these crossed over. You can't do that. It's not about that. It's about, especially when you take an IP like that, and as you all know, Star Wars has been destroyed by Disney. The same sort of thing has happened. They take it in whatever direction they want to go for modern times, or they let the artist and the director just use their own vision without respecting the fact that this universe has already been built. And at least respect that. Without getting super nerdy, at least respect what the original show is about and what it was trying to convey. And Star Trek now, they're just obsessed with making it this dystopian, dark vision of the future with very unlikable characters, and especially Discovery, or Section 31. Picard was a disaster except for the final season when they finally came to their senses and brought the entire Next Generation cast back, which was amazing, but still not good enough to save it. And nowadays, same as the movies, the new Star Trek movies, they focus on, they think it's about action. I think they missed the point. The things that happen in Star Trek, you are on a Galaxy-class starship in the future with all of your crew, and you're out there meeting aliens and other worlds. The action is a side effect. It's a side product of what happens. Star Trek is not action. It has action, but it's not about that. It's actually a more cerebral thinking man's show. It always has been. But yeah, they focus on the action and the effects, and that has been the demise of Star Trek. And again, that's my opinion. Yours may differ, but that's a very popular opinion now amongst a lot of Star Trek fans, that the current Star Trek has turned more into Blade Runner and become so dystopian. And that's not Star Trek. Frankly, the show should be called Star Trek Orville. I swear, it's that good in paying homage to Star Trek. So it actually started in 2017 on CBS. So I'm a bit late to the game. I guess I've been avoiding it because I didn't want to be disappointed, or I didn't want to taint my memories further of Star Trek, as all the modern Star Trek shows have done. And when I say it's comedy, so think of the humor like, and again, now I'm talking to people who were Star Trek fans, especially the Next Generation, and that was a huge hit, 100%. Amazing characters, amazing writing, amazing show, full stop. That's not disputed. But think of the humor that happened on the Next Generation in like the seasons that were further, like 3 and 4, when the show found its feet and everyone was starting to get to know each other better. Of course there's moments of levity in there. How could there not be? Every TV show has that. So when there's moments of humor and a little laugh between the crew, and that's part of the scene, and you feel that, oh, that's cool. Look at the camaraderie and their friends. That's the kind of humor that's in the Orville. Except, sometimes it's just taken a bit further because Star Trek The Next Generation and all the other series are meant to be serious dramas. It's not a piss take. But in this one, yes, they have a bit of fun with the comedy. And how could you not? Because again, with something like Star Trek, there are so many moments that could be comical. You're dealing with aliens and alien cultures and their little quirky ways, and that alone leads to comedy. But in Star Trek, you couldn't really, lean into it too much. But the Orville obviously leans into its humor, and that's okay. Because frankly, as the show evolved, they found that they were winning by being a huge win with the Star Trek fans, so they leaned into more of the serious and a little bit less comedy. But that's okay. The show is still really great. So the core, like I say, is the characters, and it's the crew. Again, when it's something like this, and it's all about you're heading off into the galaxy and deep space with your crew in a starship. Of course, it's about all of the connections. So that chemistry is great. And the thing I love about the show that is refreshing, like I said, there's not a lot of television these days because they want to get across the message. They'll have a character who will be written a certain way so that you can either be against that person or empathize with them, but mostly against them. So nobody here is targeted to be a specific anything. They're all just playing as if they actually are these people on a starship in space. As in someone like the comic relief character. A lot of times in TV shows, the comic relief character will evolve to not even have a serious side or be taken seriously or have any skills or intelligence or being grounded in reality. The thing that I was really, and again, you'll notice this when you watch other shows and then you watch this one, the same character, now this is the pilot, who has a lot of the sort of the one-liners and comic relief. In the next scene, they'll also lean right into an actual real huge action scene, and his piloting skills saves the ship, and everyone commends that, and it's a tense moment, and it's real, and he's paid that respect. So, and frankly, isn't that actually kind of like real life? You can have someone who's funny, but they also go to a job and they do quite well and perform. They're not just, so like I say, it's not just a caricature of people. It's sort of grounded in reality while it has humor. So that's the other thing. The fun part is, and not a lot of shows are like this, it's based in reality, as in our reality. So it's our future. Now, Star Trek is supposed to be our future too, the future of humans. And the thing about it in this show, it's fun because, again, they're doing a bit of humor. Everything in our reality can be referenced, or things from the past pop culture, food. They would, donuts, Coca-Cola, a certain song, a movie. There was an episode where they were playing Barry Manilow. So everything in our actual life can be referenced there, and that's funny. They'll talk about, remember when people used to do this in the 90s, and they make fun of it. The only thing that doesn't exist is Star Trek, because they are like Star Trek. Does that make sense? And that's kind of fun, right? They can reference all of our current modern pop culture things and add them to the show, and it's not quirky because they are us in the future. Now the other thing that was exciting is, and I didn't know this, but I'm a little bit more on board with when I found this out, is Brannon Braga was involved, and he started out as an intern on The Next Generation and ended up co-producing and writing for that show and being a pivotal part of its success, and also a Voyager and even on to Enterprise. So then I started to see, I see, this really isn't just Seth MacFarlane going, you know what, I'm gonna get the rights to this, sort of, let them know what I'm gonna do, and I'm just gonna take it and run with it and make it a, Family Guy in space. You know what? No. He's actually had people involved from the Star Trek series to say, well, this is what we would do on the show, and let's give it that flavor so you can have your new show with a little bit of comedy, but it really has that Star Trek feeling, and that's fantastic. So I think, they've done a wonderful job of mixing the best elements of Star Trek and lighting it up with a little comedy, and entertaining and relevant at the same time, which is good. Another way to describe it is like a real earnest attempt at Galaxy Quest, which again, that one was certainly a bit of a piss take on Star Trek with Tim Allen. But again, in the late 90s, a really good movie because it still respected it, and it was a good sort of homage to Star Trek. And the other thing is they really get into some deep stuff while having moments of levity. They get into some real good drama plots. There's some sort of Black Mirror stuff going on here. There's one episode, without huge spoilers, but it's called Majority Rule. And look, that certainly reflected our modern society. They ended up on a planet similar to Earth, supposedly in the development of Earth around our current time, late 20th century, early 21st century. And the entire planet, everyone was beholden to others' judgment, as in everyone had this little badge with an up arrow and a down arrow, and essentially that was plugged into sort of the World Wide Web. Same thing, everyone's got a phone on that planet, and if you did something wrong, anything that someone didn't like, you could just look at them wrong. You could just, give them a funny look or say the wrong thing. They would give you a down button, or they would post it online, and in the town, there's all these giant screens showing who's being the highest rated or the lowest rated. So essentially, your life is being judged at every moment, and it turns out there's actually dire consequences to that. Again, a little bit of a spoiler, but there's plenty of other good episodes to watch. But I thought this was interesting because it was really dark and dystopian, but it was in this show, the Orville, which is supposed to be sort of comedic. But yeah, imagine that, how reflective that is of our actual society, and how we are in a constant state of social media opinion, and especially the younger generation, their whole life is obsessed with how other people think of them and being liked. I didn't get enough likes. Imagine if that had consequences of you going to jail or something. Oh boy. I'm not going to get too deep into that, but you really think that's something that doesn't exist? It does, folks. There is a social credit score. China is using it as we speak. But again, so that's again of the sort of reflective of reality and how dark that can get. So yeah, social media score. When you get the down arrow, if you get enough of those, you end up in jail. So obviously, again, good writing. They are trying to get into the meat of some modern things. I know I bagged that before, but they don't lean into it so much that they are preaching to you. And that's what a show should really do. They present something, you have to think about it, and you decide. They don't stop, pick you out and go, and you're the problem, and we're going to tell you why. So I was talking about, like, say, the comedy relief person, this character, Gordon, he's the ship's pilot, kind of reminds me of Wash from Firefly, and if anyone's a Joss Whedon fan, Firefly, it sort of has that feeling too. It's serious, but a little bit funny, and everyone gets to have their time to have a joke, and great cast and great chemistry. And he's sort of the wisecracking pilot, but again, they don't treat him like he's a goofball or a dunce standing in the corner. He's still a skilled pilot, and they pay respect to that. So that's good. The other hilarious character is Bortus. He is the alien on the ship, and again, that's classic. Star Trek, of course, had that. You'd have aliens working with the crew, but they explore the fact that what if the alien, really had quirky things, and we were able to talk about them and make them a bit funny. So he's sort of the straight man, which makes it hilarious. Totally straight-faced, and the things that he's saying, he's just being honest, but he doesn't realize they're funny because there's like an innocence to it, especially when you're an alien living amongst humans and you don't know our culture. So again, off the bat, they already have a really, really good team of characters. And Seth MacFarlane, he does play the captain. I'm not going to say that was... I think it would have been interesting if he had just cast someone else and stayed out of it and stayed in the background, writing and everything. But he's all right. Like I say, the last time I saw him actually live was in the Old West movie, Million Ways to Die in the West, which was not great. And again, he's not the most fantastic actor. I think he should stick more to writing and doing voiceovers. But anyway, he is the captain. It's all right. But yeah, the plots are thought-provoking. Time is taken to develop each character. And again, nobody's the butt of any joke. And they all joke with each other like a real crew would. So yeah, I'm definitely invested in the show, and it's a show that you could get invested in the characters yourself, even if you weren't a huge Star Trek fan. Sadly, the late great Norm Macdonald voices one of the characters, this blob character on the show. He's great. And yeah, it's sad when you hear him, but yeah, he does one of the voices. That's the other thing. Obviously, again, Seth MacFarlane, he's pretty big in Hollywood. Obviously, if you follow Seth MacFarlane, Family Guy, he's done a lot of the Star Wars parodies, and that doesn't just happen lightly. You don't just go, I'm going to do these. This is someone he's been to he's been to Lucas and Skywalker Ranch and sat down and really storyboarded, and he worked closely with Lucas too, and Lucas gave him his blessing. That's a big thing. So from there, and just in general, being in Hollywood, what I'm alluding to is he's got a lot of connections. So there's a lot of Star Trek alums that make appearances. I won't say which ones, but they're all worth it, and it's really good. And you can see how when they're on the show, they probably thought, "Oh, I see what you're doing here. I like it. I'm on board." And you like that. That's how to do a good remake. That's where Hollywood's getting it so wrong. You can have your modern artistic vision for modern audiences, but you still need to respect the core material. Simple as that. Respect the original material and at least try to build it around something that's already has a following. That's how you lose fans. That's how you lose millions of fans, by alienating them and just saying, nah, instead of coming up with my own thing, frankly, I'm just going to graffiti over yours. You know what I mean? That's just stealing. So don't steal it, build upon it. And then when you get original cast members of the show, that shows you how much further you've actually done the right thing when they're on board to again make that link to the original show. And I think that's great. So, and when I say this show is the best Star Trek out there, I truly mean it captures what Star Trek was. And frankly, to boldly go where no one has gone before. It was these simple ideas, and the idea how it's not like Star Wars. Star Wars is more fantasy. Star Wars is about rebels and always fighting. There's always a fight. Star Trek was honestly about exploration, just pure exploration. Let's go. We have the technology now. We have warp speed. We can travel, light years out of our solar system and find out what's out in this vast galaxy. At its heart, that's very altruistic and kind of beautiful. And that is the kind of spirit that carries over into this show, and that's the kind of spirit that should cross over into any remake. So yeah, again, this is what happens when, like I say, the wrong people get hold of an IP and they just turn it into ideology and politics. So the Orville started out on CBS, and it ended up on Hulu. Hulu has since been bought out by Disney and Paramount, and again, it's like movie and streaming wars. So currently, you can stream it on Disney, and I think the great thing is in the season 3, they start using some of that Hulu money. Again, not that it's. Yeah, Star Trek is about special effects. Sci-fi is about effects as well. So yes, that is part of the universe. So why not? If you have the chance to enhance it, you do. And so they did a bit. You can really see, oh, okay, there's some serious cool special effects going on here. And all this, the sets aren't overly done just to be ornate and ridiculous on purpose. But sure, they can add another little computer light here and something there. Again, not something that's in your face, but just enough to you see that they put some money behind it, and that's good. It deserves it. A show that finally deserves its budget because there's a payoff. Again, there's so many movies out there right now, folks, that cost hundreds of millions of dollars. These employ like whole cities, and then they go to the box office and they make like 50 million, which is still a lot. But it doesn't help when you spent 300 million, or you have to make $1 billion, and of course they blame us. We're the problem. We didn't show up because we didn't understand. You didn't understand what we were after. So again, right now, I don't know if the show is done. It seems to be up in the air. I think it kind of is, but you never know. So there's 4 seasons wrapped up in 2022. But again, if you Google around, it seems like there's some murmurs that you never know. There's always an option it could pop back up. But again, my feeling is also if you end on a good note, then end. Don't beat a dead horse. Another thing Hollywood is doing, just dragging out IPs until there's nothing left but a burnt, charred carcass that they're still trying to feed on. More. Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Marvel. They just are insatiable. They can't come up with new ideas. But this is one that is it's new idea adjacent, but based on Star Trek, and I think it's brilliant. So, like I say, if you're a Star Trek fan and you haven't seen the Orville, definitely check it out. It's worth it. It's more Star Trek than modern Star Trek. And if you're someone that's just looking for a good, well-rounded show with good characters, good plot development, good stories, and yes, a bit of lighthearted fun, the Orville is definitely something to check out. All right, that's me done tonight, nerding out on you. But like I say, I'm a huge Star Trek fan. I've been very disappointed in a lot of the current takes on what I think was and could have been a franchise that extended a lot further. But just like Star Wars, I think they've taken them in the wrong direction, and it's just going to end up fizzling out and losing all of its fan base. But definitely check out the Orville. All right, more great music coming up tonight on our Cowboy Pop section of Radio Motion. More great songs after a word from our sponsors.